And I wanted to kick us off with this quote from Octavia's Brood, which is a book co-authored by Walida Emerisha and Adrienne Marie Brown about the work of Octavia Butler, a science fiction writer who I know Grace did a workshop on in the last season. So anytime we try to envision a different world without poverty, prisons, capitalism, war, we are engaging in science fiction. When we can dream those realities together, that's when we can begin to build them right here and now. So I thought that was a nice grounding quote to start us off. And as Hanna already did the intro, I won't say too much. I'm Hanna Thomas Uose. I work with nonprofits and mission-driven organizations on their strategy and facilitation and coaching, and that's in the social justice space, which a lot of the content of this workshop is going to be grounded in. I'm also studying prose fiction at the University of East Anglia, and I'm writing a speculative novel that's kind of engaged in this what if question, like what if we had the ability to live much longer lifespans than we do now. And it's that what if question that we're going to also come back to in this workshop. A few guiding principles that you can take or leave. We are going to be doing a little bit of scribbling, so grab a notebook or have a pen and paper or just use a laptop if you want to. Please stay hydrated, snack if you need to, go to the loo, do whatever. It's your bod and your time, so please take care of yourselves, especially on this hot day, like in the UK, or at least in London where I am hot. So please make sure you're taking care of yourselves and stay comfortable. As Amber said, we're recording. If you don't want your camera on, that's totally fine, but just for my own pleasure, it's lovely to see people as you're talking to them. So if you can bear to, that would be nice. There's also one breakout room in the last half where you'll be put into pairs. So it'd also be nice if you could bear to have your camera on then, but no worries if not. And then the last thing is, even though we are going to be doing a bit of writing in the last half, this is absolutely not a sort of creative writing workshop in the sense that we're trying to produce beautiful words. You know, this is a judgment-free space. No expectation to like read out something that sounds lovely. This is more about flexing that muscle that's about curiosity and delving into details and sort of asking ourselves hypothetical questions and using writing as an instrument to do that. But you're not expected to kind of produce something published. Okay, so what are we going to do today? I always like to know when I attend these things, like, what's the plan? So the plan is we're going to put another tool in the toolbox, as collectively I know a lot of you here, and I'd love actually at some point to hear about who you are, where you're coming from, what you're working on. But I imagine that a lot of you are in this struggle together to work towards a more just world. And we're going to experiment with another approach that we can use with other groups that we're in community with, flexing that imagination muscle. An outcome, I'm hoping that you'll come away with some concepts associated with world building and speculative design and have practiced applying those concepts to your own research question. The first half, I'm going to go over a bit of a presentation of some of the concepts. We're going to do a little visioning exercise. Then we're going to have a 10-minute break at about 4:05. And then in the second half, we're going to be a bit more interactive, be writing, be sharing. Not too much, but a little bit. So before we dive in, I'd love to, maybe if you could just drop in the chat, like your name, your pronouns if you want to, where you're coming from, and just what drew you to this workshop. I would love to have a little insight into that. Just a little sentence. I'm on tenterhooks. Okay, we have Dora in Finland, incredible, here because we want to know more about building narratives for systems change. Well, that's perfect. Okay, amazing. Ontario, Canada, world building fiction and community. That's awesome. Hi, Sweden. Wow, this is so cool. Health innovation. Yes, exactly. Combining love of sci-fi fantasy writing with innovation work. Totally. You are all my people. Philadelphia, world building, design fiction, very unexplored. Totally. I had to do a lot of reading to put this together, and it's such an interesting and vague thing. Curiosity, Switzerland, Amsterdam, crossovers, yes, Birmingham, good. I'm glad we have some Birmingham representatives. Okay, this is so exciting, everyone. Oh, Ludi, nice to see you again. Okay, this is brilliant. And I'm excited about some of you being able to chat to and meet each other as well, because it seems like this is just a perfect, amazing community of people. Thank you all so much for coming. Okay. Yes, world building and grief practices. Well, you all sound flipping incredible. So let's get started. And I'm going to talk after I play this clip.
I'm a storyteller, and I would like to tell you a few personal stories about what I like to call the danger of the single story. I grew up on a university campus in Eastern Nigeria. My mother says that I started reading at the age of 2, although I think 4 is probably close to the truth. So I was an early reader, and what I read were British and American children's books. I was also an early writer. And when I began to write at about the age of 7, stories in pencil with crayon illustrations that my poor mother was obligated to read, I wrote exactly the kinds of stories I was reading. All my characters were white and blue-eyed. They played in the snow. They ate apples. They talked a lot about the weather, how lovely it was that the sun had come out. Now, this despite the fact that I lived in Nigeria. I had never been outside Nigeria. We didn't have snow. We ate mangoes. And we never talked about the weather because there was no need to. My characters also drank a lot of ginger beer because the characters in the British books I read drank ginger beer. Never mind that I had no idea what ginger beer was. And for many years afterwards, I would have a desperate desire to taste ginger beer. But that is another story. What this demonstrates, I think, is how impressionable and vulnerable we are in the face of a story, particularly as children. Because all I had read were books in which characters were foreign, I had become convinced that books, by their very nature, had to have foreigners in them and had to be about things with which I could not personally identify. Now, things changed when I discovered African books. There weren't many of them available, and they weren't quite as easy to find as the foreign books. But because of writers like Chinua Achebe and Kamara Laye, I went through a mental shift in my perception of literature. I realized that people like me, girls with skin the color of chocolate, whose kinky hair could not form ponytails, could also exist in literature. I started to write about things I recognized. Now, I loved those American and British books I read. They stirred my imagination. They opened up new worlds for me. But the unintended consequence was that I did not know that people like me could exist in literature. So what the discovery of African writers did for me was this. It saved me from having a single story of what books are. I'm a storyteller.
How do I move this? Oh, there we go. So I wanted to start with that clip by the Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And the last, it's a really great talk. It's 19 minutes. We don't have time to watch it all now, but if you do, this is how she ends that talk. When we reject the single story, when we realize that there is never a single story about any place, we regain a kind of paradise. And I think where I wanted to start with this workshop, and what came to mind when Amara came to me and asked if I was interested in doing something, was both in literature and in social justice organizing. It's really compelling to start with that single issue story, to try and boil down the complexity of the world into a compelling narrative that's black or white or win or lose. And certainly I think in organizations that I've worked in, you know, you might rush through, you might be like, okay, we need to put together our mission and vision statement. We have 3 hours, let's do it in half a day, bish, bash, bosh, done. And I think what that can do is create a very alienating experience and build in conflict down the road for staff internally, for partners that you might work with, for supporters of your mission and vision who don't necessarily see themselves in the story you're telling, because you haven't taken the time to delve into the detail and really sort of surface all of the complexities of the work that you're doing. And so I became interested in, because I've been spending a lot of time writing this never-ending novel and thinking about speculative world building. I've been spending some time thinking about what about this this world building exercise could be the next step for organizations in the social justice space. And what I loved was this quote by Bruce Sterling, who coined the term design fiction, which we'll come to in a moment. And he says that design fiction tells worlds rather than stories. So I guess that this time that we're spending together is, from me, a bit of a provocation about what that might mean for us to collectively tell worlds rather than stories. So this is, very jargony title, and I wanted to unpack a little bit about what we mean by world building. So this person, Tony Patrick, he is a world builder, an immersive director. He builds sort of like big interactive games, and he did this really incredible interview with a website called The Creative Independent. And he says, I usually define world building as creating a speculative future that catalyzes a real world, modern day result. World building is usually first associated with literary and gaming realms in terms of creating a fictional universe. But over the years, I've had the pleasure and privilege to see various communities sit around the table and catalyze a vision which can be implemented and materialized in the present. I'm starting to think that we're all to some extent, no, hold on. I'm starting to think that we're all to some degree world builders. We want a culturally abundant crew of people to imagine together in order to avoid biased and siloed outcomes. It provides a dimensionality that you would not get with groups made up of the same people. It's a personal principle that I add to all of my world building sessions, because otherwise, one person's utopia becomes another person's dystopia. So this whole quote makes me think of MAIA and Yard, and how that MAIA as an organization is world building, you know, creating these tangible spaces for people to gather and experience the world as it should be. And just wanted to acknowledge that so many people on this call right now are already doing this. Also wanted to pull out this idea of like one person's utopia being another person's dystopia. It's so tempting, right, to be pulled into one or another of those narratives. And coincidentally, this was a Facebook post that an acquaintance of mine put on their page a couple of days ago, who works for a social justice organization. So he said, hey friends, I'm looking to commission a piece of digital art for a climate project. The idea would be to contrast a solar punk aesthetic heaven with a fiery climate dystopia hell. Does anyone know anybody who'd be skilled at that and is doing commissioned work? Thank you. And I love that, because it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that this is a tool in the toolbox in terms of communicating the inherent dangers of climate chaos and all of that, but it doesn't, I feel like that is where we are collectively as a movement, and we're not holding the space necessary for more complex and nuanced conversations about what might exist in the middle of that. So what else did I want to say? Yes, that we're just constantly living in a world that encompasses both ends of that spectrum. So I also wanted to introduce the concept of throughtopias. This is a concept by a writer called Manda Scott. And she has a project called Throughtopias. And she says, we may know we badly need new systems, but we're as much a part of the system as anyone else. Even if we can imagine a world better than this one, we don't know how to write the roadmap that takes us from here to there. So we write dystopias because it's easy to imagine how bad things could be, or we create utopias because we can leap forward and imagine something better as long as it's somewhere or somewhen distant. So I love this idea of the throughutopia, and I think it's very much connected to the concept of design fiction, because both of them are concerned with the near future. It's not about skipping forward 100 or 200 years and being like, okay, let's imagine like the glorious end point. It's like, no, what is the messy middle? What is the bit that we're going to have to pull ourselves through that's going to be all of the things? What are the stories that we can tell from that point that really tell the story and map out the journey from here to there? And I guess partly why I wanted to do this workshop was because I feel like whether you're a writer, whether you're an organizer, whether you're an artist, any of those things, that we might have a moral and social obligation to tell these throughtopian stories in a world where our policymakers and decision makers are failing us. Like, we may have to tell these stories to expand the vision of what's possible. And I love this quote from Adrienne Marie Brown, who in that same book I mentioned earlier, she says, imagination gives us borders, gives us superiority, gives us race as an indicator of ability. I often feel I am trapped inside of someone else's capability. I often feel I am trapped inside someone else's imagination, and I must engage my own imagination in order to break free. And if you haven't read her books, please do, they're just brilliant. So that is what we're going to engage in today. Okay, so what is design fiction? I know, I've been doing a bunch of reading about this recently, and like, it seems to me that a few guys, Bruce Sterling, a guy called Julian Bleecker, have, been in a back and forth, creating this community of people talking about design fiction over the last 15 years or so. And they describe it as a way to tell stories about alternatives and unexpected trajectories, and a way to discuss a different kind of future than the typical bifurcation into utopian, dystopian. We've covered that. But I do want to say that, like, I think they're just bringing a different discipline, a different approach to it, whereas people have been doing this forever, authors such as Octavia Butler and Ursula Le Guin and things like that. I think it's just another way for a different kind of person to engage with these ideas. The official definition is the deliberate use, this is a nightmare, the deliberate use of diegetic prototypes to suspend disbelief about change. And all that means is that a design fiction is something that creates a story world, like a universe. Something is prototyped or designed within that universe in order to create a discussion about what's possible. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. It seems that a common theme in the design fiction conversation is that it's all quite boring, it's all quite mundane. They're exploring the day-to-day minutiae of what it might mean to live in an alternate world, instead of being like super up in the clouds about it, which I think is a very useful way of thinking and planning for the future. So the design fiction methodology is starting with a what if question, which is exactly the same as like how you'd approach a speculative writing exercise. What if? Then you'd be like, what if this? And then you'd be like, well, if that was true, then maybe this is true. Maybe this other thing would exist. And then you'd propose that other thing forward and like display it or use that as a prompt for discussion. So an example is the golden snitch. So the author, who shall not be named, who came up with the Harry Potter universe, she thought, okay, what if wizards and witches had a game where they flew around on brooms? How would they play that game? And then she obviously thought, well, the ball would have to fly. So there'd be this flying ball and it would be called the golden snitch. And then she included that in her work of fiction. And now, weirdly, there are genuinely people who run around on brooms playing Quidditch, I think. I think there are real life Quidditch teams. So that is like a kind of literary example of a design fiction. This is another example, like a more community organizing example I'm going to show you. And it's this group called the Lamert Phone Company based in the Lamert Park neighborhood of South Los Angeles. And they have used design fiction as a way of charting alternate paths to gentrification in that neighborhood. So I'm just going to play you this video.
Hello, can I get a ride?
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Location is confirmed. A shuttle will arrive shortly. Welcome to Los Angeles. Welcome. Take the fast food history tour. Learn the history of the hamburger and the soap. Welcome to Lamert Park. This is the Sankofa History Tour. To your right is the World Stage, founded by Billy Higgins and Kamal Daoud. And to your left, the Vision Theater.
Shuttle stop. I'll get out here.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Okay, so how did that group apply the design fiction methodology? Their what if question was, what if new technologies and community-centered design spurred an alternative to gentrification in Lamert Park? And it's a neighborhood that has a high concentration of African Americans, of Japanese Americans, and house prices have apparently just jumped through the roof. Okay, so their design prototype, because apparently I think there were a lot of abandoned payphones, out of use payphones in that neighborhood. So they were thinking, what if we redesign the payphone for a different purpose? What could it do? What might it spark? And then they held community meetings and created this video as a way to spark discussion, spark ideas within that community. And so I'm going to stop there and see if you have questions right now. We have like about 5 minutes for any questions or clarifications before we jump to the next step. Let me just catch up on the chat. if there are, I mean, please don't be shy if there are wonderings, but if there aren't, that's also fine. Everyone seems cool with it. That's great. Okay, cool. So then what I would love for you to do is pick your, a question from Dora. How to include the voices of non-humans? Dora, that's a great question. And I think this could be an excellent segue into the next section of this exercise I want to give to you, which is to pick your own what if question. So Dora, your question might be like, what might a world look like that better prioritized or better heard the voices of non-humans? I would love to hear, I would love for you to pick a question like that, because I think you'd come up with some super interesting answers. So please take a few minutes to pick your own what if question. And an example I have, the question I'm going to be working with during this exercise is, what if children were the primary decision makers when it came to their education? Because that's just been on my mind recently. So, take sort of 2 to 3 minutes to come up with a question. And once you have it, please put it in the chat. And Anna, I don't know what the outcomes were of that project. That video is from 2018, I believe. I think they partnered with the local university media centre and got some funding. And we're working with the council, but I don't know. And Hannah, in terms of the discussion and display aspect, I'm hoping that will become clearer in the second half of this workshop. So once you have your what if question, amazing. What if everyone had, yes. So please come up with your own what if question. So Elizabeth has, what if everyone had their basic needs met? Mine was, what if children were the primary decision makers regarding their education? Aretha, what would we do if we didn't have to work in order to survive? I love that. Alexia, what if I was free to be naked everywhere? Yes, Alexia. Okay, keep them coming. What if non-human species would decide on issues concerning humans? Great. This is getting very meta already. Love it. Okay, great. And as much as possible, oh, incredible. What if mental health issues were investigated as a primary source of human evolution? I love that, Sam. These are super interesting. I would encourage you to as we keep going with these questions, that we're not thinking like 300 years in the future. We're on the sort of 15 to 100 year time span. So let's keep it a bit closer and less like sci-fi out of space. What if, oh my gosh, so many good ones. What if my surrounding world was governed by music and sound? That's an incredible one. What if polyamorous and other alternative family structures were as much the norm of it? Yeah, exactly. What if the nuclear family? Ooh, I think you two should be paired maybe later. What if employees invent gossip instruments to rebel against their evil boss? Okay, what if human systems were modeled after natural systems rather than imposing human-centric concepts onto nature? Yes. What if we closed our streets for and grieved with our neighbours? That's beautiful. What if 6 months of the year is dedicated to hibernation? People, these are incredible questions. What if the prison carceral estate ended? What if advertising was outlawed? I mean, imagine. 4,000% life quality improvement, presumably. I love these questions. Thank you. This is fantastic. What if socially engaged Black artists did not say that their work is exploring Blackness? What else could be the primary lens into engaging with, responding and nourishing those practices? what if everything was open source? I mean, look at how our imaginations are already blown. My mind is blown. And I need a way to capture these. What if, what if we did all of this? What if we were naked and had no passports? These are like kind of chaos, but this is a messy middle. This is what we're trying to work out. So after all that excitement, what we're going to do now is stick with if you've come up with loads of questions, pick one, pick your favorite, maybe pick the one that's in the near future that you can really delve into the detail, that maybe isn't the most abstract thing, but something that feels like it could be rooted in something. And what we're going to do is make ourselves super comfortable. So if you're sitting uncomfortably, please sit more comfortably. Adjust your temperature, adjust your clothing, put your feet on the ground or sit on the ground, whatever feels nice, because we're going to go into a bit of a visioning exercise. Feel free, if you have your camera on and you want to turn your camera off for this bit, feel free. Otherwise, I love to look at your faces. And if it feels comfortable, I'll invite you to close your eyes. And if you'd prefer to just have a soft gaze in front of you, that's lovely too. And let's take 3 deep breaths together, just to start transitioning into a bit of an imaginative space. We're going to take 1 breath, just let it go. And 1 last one. Just keep a slow, easy breath coming in and out. And wherever you feel tension, you might need to take a moment to identify if you do feel tension and where. I can feel a bit in my jaw and between my eyebrows. So I'm just going to bring my attention to those places and just let go of a little that I can. If it feels good to take a bit of a neck roll, you can do that. If you need to do a shoulder roll, something that will just bring you into your body. You can notice where your body meets the chair or the floor, and just give over a little more of your weight to gravity. And now I want you to let your locus of attention, focus, drop from your head and let it just sink and drop down into your stomach. Just emptying your mind a fraction more to invite a few images, a few daydreams that we're going to be guided through in a moment. And as we go through this exercise, I'm going to ask a series of prompt questions and invite you to see some images. And please just trust whatever comes up. You might see clear pictures, you might see just colours or feel a sensation. or hear sounds, just trust whatever comes up for you. And I want you to repeat your what if question, probably in your mind, but if you're on mute, you can also say it out loud. Just really invite yourself to turn that question over in your mind. What if? What if? Now you're going to see a calendar with today's date on it, June 15th, Juneteenth, for those of you in the States, 2022. And it's one of those calendars, those paper calendars with only one date on every page. And you're going to watch the pages of that calendar turn, peel away as you move through time. The pages turn as you move through the rest of June and into July. Through the rest of the summer. Into the autumn months. Maybe the pages pick up speed as you turn into the next year, 2023, going ever faster, time moving on, launching yourself towards that moment in time where that what if question has been answered and come to pass. So take note of how far you're moving, how many years have passed. Watch those days go by until you start to slow down again and land softly into that day, however many years from now. When that what if question is a reality. And I want you to now see a door in front of you. Take in its size and shape, what it's made of, and its colour. And now open the door and step through. So you are in a world of your own creation. Take a look around. Where are you? What does it look like? What can you smell? What can you hear? If your what if question is now a statement, what has changed about the world? Take notice of how you feel in this space. What's the spirit of it? Is there anyone around you? And who are they? What are they doing? What happens if you start a conversation or an interaction with someone sharing that space with you? What if you ask them what they like about this world? What if you ask them what could be better? Take notice of how you're feeling. Do you like this world? What would you change about it? And since you're in control of this picture, go ahead and make that change or those changes. Now take a walk around, maybe with that person, or maybe you say goodbye. Maybe you move to another space. And really soak in the details. What technology are people using? What does it do? Maybe get curious about it, inspect it. What does it feel like? And keep exploring. You might want to explore the landscape or the buildings. You might want to try the food or talk to someone else. Before you leave this place, because you'll be leaving in a moment, you're going to connect with someone whose job it is to escort you back to that doorway. And take in who that person is, or it might not be a person, it might be a being. And that personal being has a gift or a message for you, and they're going to hand it to you now. And if you look down, what is it? What is that gift? You can just put that in your pocket to take back with you. And your guide is going to take you back to the doorway. And you can take one last look around, try and capture the little details. And you will say goodbye and find your way back to that door. And then step straight. And slowly, whenever you're ready, we will come back. And I can see that a few of you are sort of coming back. I can't see the rest of you, so I'll assume you're back in our world. And we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I'm going to say that we're going to take a 10-minute break now. And then when we come back, we are going to translate some of what we saw in our visions into rules of the world. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on the other side. I am going to share a little music that's about 10 minutes long. So when you hear that come to an end, please hop back on, turn your cameras on if you can bear it, and I'll see you then. Hello. Welcome back. If you could let me know if you're back, that would be great. Awesome. Hi everyone. So hope you had a nice break. Did anyone do anything great? No, just had I had some yogurt. Oh, the other thing is that I want to say I played that Nick Drake song, if you heard it, Pink Moon, because there's a strawberry full moon today. And the moon has been looking great where I live the last couple of nights. So check it out this evening. Lady just grabbed oh my God, Dora's on it, making nut balls in the break. That's just like too productive, Lady. No, Dora. I mean, Lady was productive too, stretched. And Elizabeth grieved that that world is not existing yet. That feels so real. I think it can just be just this huge drop in, it could just feel like, yeah, super sad, can't it? Once we've allowed ourselves in that just beautiful imaginative space to come back. And that, thank you for saying that and acknowledging that, because it can be tough on the old heart and the old soul. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. Hold on. Is it? Can you see anything? I can't see it. Here we go. Can you see this? Okay. So we're going to take your visions and translate those visions into some rule. I wish there was another word for rules. Rules sounds so strict, and it's not meant to be strict. It's more like, what are the parameters? Like, what are the norms of this world? So we're going to take about 10 minutes. So get your notebook out or your pen and paper, or just open up a new document. And you can take these questions. You certainly don't have to answer all of them, just use these as inspiration to flesh out the details of this world. So whatever that world was, that world doesn't exist yet. But we're getting into the nitty gritty now of what would have to be true for that world to exist. What other things about the world would have to be true? What would the supporting systems be? What would the supporting values be? How would other things have to work and interact with that what if question in order for that world to be true? And this is where we're starting to map out all of the complexities of your vision with like that systems theory thing, that like you tug on one part of the web and something else over here starts to twitch. You know, what's the relationship between all of these complexities? So 10 minutes to just let your mind go wild. No right or wrong here. And we're not sharing these back in a big group. You won't have to compulsory share in a big group at any time. So just feel free to use this for your own fun and pleasure and investigation. Okay, looks like if I can see us sort of coming to an end. So what we are going to do now is, oh, hold on. I'm going to put am I? I don't seem to have Amber or Hannah. I don't suddenly seem to have the breakout room function.
Grace is going to help you in a few moments.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to put you into pairs. Maybe one group will be a 3, depending on the numbers. And what you're going to do for another 10 minutes is share the rules of your world. Like, share the premise of your world, share the rules. And please don't be embarrassed. The whole point of this is that it's a creative exercise. Some of your rules might sound silly, but I'm sure to the other person it's going to be super fascinating. And the job of the other person is to just ask questions. Ask, like, what, you know, notice what has that person considered, what haven't they considered. Ask questions and just get them to delve a bit deeper into specifics, just to get their rules to be consistent. So Grace, whenever you are ready, please.
Are you happy for people just to be automatically assigned?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I'll do that now.
Thanks, Grace. Hi. I wonder, is that everyone back? Grace, is Grace here? I assume that's everyone back. I just feel like, I was just saying, I feel like I got a little glimpse into the future, which was like so exciting. How is everyone else's times? Yeah, and it's nice to see some of you. Great. Okay, so what I want to do now is take another 10 minutes, and this is going to be our design fiction. Okay, this is the object we're creating, and we're going to write a journal entry from someone in that world. Okay, so we're going to write a day in the life include the highs and lows of the day, where that person went, what they got up to, what they're frustrated with, what they loved and enjoyed. And we're just going to scribble that down to 10 minutes. And then anyone who wants to can share at the end. And I would love to hear as many as possible, but no pressure. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to come back and then we're going to celebrate and then we're going to go. Okay, so wherever you are, start to bring that diary entry to a close. Sign off. And if you're happy to come back on the video, I'd love that for that last bit, so that we can be a supportive audience for anyone who would like to share. And I know that we might feel very shy because we don't know each other, but this is not about judging the writing. This is just about being so curious to hear your ideas and your visions after a couple of hours of doing this solo. Let's share our brains and our worlds, and it'll be super interesting to see how they might fit together as well. So would anyone like to collect all our gratitude? And yes, great, thank you, Alexia. Did you go with a naked one? Oh my god. Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Monday, 4 p.m-ish, grumpy. I wanted to go free today, but the weather was awful when I left the house, so I put my protective layers on and headed out. Some people with less sensitive systems were fully nuding, which was a joy to see. Intent on getting my fix, I headed to the swimming pool on my way to the bookshop. Diving in fresh was a really soul-satisfying moment. I can still feel when my torso first hit the warm water. Not being bothered about enough fabric for my bum or the right stretch for my boobs felt as good as ever. I cannot believe we used to ban people from being their natural selves. It was a bit brighter when I left the pool, so I opted for jeans, trainers, and free top. The water had warmed me from the inside out, so I walked the last 15 minutes to the bookshop and took in the sights. No one of interest, which was a shame. Last week, I saw some amazing students who had incorporated feathers, neon paint, and string into their body paint for the day. Inspired me to try it next time I'm headed out for an event. The bookshop was slow because of the weather, so I went onto our customer records and designed a little bookish leaflet to send out. Our fully paper process is so much better for my brain than the Instagram, Twitter, TikTok days of yore. How I do not miss them. I ate an apple, then headed home again. Eve.
Round of applause. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Okay, and the premise, for anyone who didn't hear, was the premise. Do you want to state your question, your what if question? So,
it was, what if I was free to be naked everywhere?
Love it. Thank you so much. I love that body paint feathers idea too. Who else would like to share? Pretty please.
I'll share.
Yeah, Hannah, go for it.
Thank God, yes. Okay.
And what is your question? What was your what if question?
Mine was, if 6 months of the year was dedicated to your passion, healing, and joy. I am not sure if it will get easier being an imposter in my own life. Knowing that I wake up, body prepared to go through the trauma of capitalism. It's been 4 years since it has ended, and the practice of being in the era of joyism fills me with awe and disbelief. I have never been so encouraged to get up. These used to be days I didn't want to experience. I was tired of reinforcing the world they created without me in mind. Today, it took me some time to face the world. I didn't want to pick up my camera today. I reckoned with the fact that I had finished my course 3 years now, was given this camera as part of my qualification, and here I am, not having the energy to create. I remember my teacher told me that every part of life is joyous, even the parts when you are not experiencing joy. I'm consistently making art, even when I am not, because it is the whole journey that informs me. It's not just the finished piece. I plugged in, Haven't done that in months, and all of the serotonin flooded my body as I exhaled all doubts of me being deserving, of creating, of reflecting, of being. I searched for affirmed. Saw 482 videos that depicted worldwide experiences of joy. A majority of people on their street documenting the different art making, dancing, and praise that was happening just because it was Wednesday.
That was wonderful. Absolute chills. I want that up on my wall. Thank you so much, Hannah. I could just do this forever. Yeah, 100%. Who else? Who else? Who else? Come on. If you have a little voice, a small.
I can go.
Yes, Caitlin.
Okay. So I went with the idea, what if advertising was outlawed? So journal entry. I worked at Kelly's today. She greeted me in one of her understated but still expensive sweaters, cashmere this time, and pants that had been perfectly tailored. I must have seen her in them 1,000 times, but every time she looks like the most polished angel. She excused herself into her quiet office. I could already feel myself sweating through the one-time tank I had bought, its armhole slowly dissolving as I worked. I would need to buy another week pack on the way home. After cleaning, I went downtown to pick up new shoes. The signs along the street had been changed over for the new season, yellow for spring, and the shoes in the shop window had been artfully arranged to show off this season's new shape. I found myself wishing I could afford something on trend, but I went for my old standby. I ran into my friend Jessa at the lunch spot, both of us holding our brown paper bags, and we ate outside together. I got mustard down the front of my one-time tank and changed right there on the street. Everyone knows that these clothes barely last a day before shredding into nothing. I scrolled the socials for a while when I got home, and something caught my eye, a little hand-sewn bunny. I wondered idly if I could replicate that at home when something at the bottom of the caption caught my eye, a for sale hashtag. I sucked in my breath. This was edgy for a little designer. Maybe she was hoping to fly under the radar and not get caught, but I clicked through and hearted it and took a screenshot, hashtag and all. Sometimes it's the little things that feel the freshest, like a mom making a collection of hand-sewn stuffies and trying to sell them online.
The detail in this world. Unbelievable. Thank you, Caitlin. I want to read a novel-length version of all of these. Yeah, agree, Faye. All of these sound like poetry. Right, do we have anyone else willing to share? Or unwilling, but still kind of got a little push inside them to do so. Oh. Anna, is that you?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't really finish it in a good way, I think, because time, but
No,
I'll give it a go. So my question was, what if cities didn't exist anymore? And my person is Julia, who's a friend of mine right now who loves living in a city. I woke up this morning and it didn't feel any different than usual, really. I made my morning caffeinated beverage and went outside to check on my tomatoes. Right on the biggest one, the one I've been waiting to harvest, was a big fat slug. It had eaten half the damn thing. What? How did I think I could be the person who grows their own tomatoes? I'm not that person. And tomatoes don't even grow naturally in this cold fucking country. Who am I kidding? It's like the charade I've been playing for the past year just melted away in my brain. I had to get out of here. I ordered myself a pod train and hopped off at the station closest to Old Stockholm. You can't travel directly there by pod into the city itself. So I just hiked it the last 5 kilometers through rough country to get there. It looks really depressing, all walled up and dark and empty. But I knew it wasn't really empty. I'd heard of them, the ravers. It took me a good couple of hours to find them, but a trail of growing noise, telltale signs of glitter showed me the way. My mind went back to trekking through the forest to go to a rave. Now they happen in the carcasses of our old cities.
Absolute mic drop. I want to read the rest of that. I feel cheated. That was brilliant. So vivid. Fantastic. Oh, wow. I feel so lucky to be able to hear these. I think we have time for one more. Anyone wants to? No? That's fine. What I would love to invite you to do, I'm going to drop my email and contacts in the chat. And if you'd be willing to email me your entries, I'd just love to read them after. So I'll do that. And just to wrap up, I would say, first off, thank you for bearing with. That was like a super long and info intense and brain intense workshop. And it was the first time I've ever tried to do this. And like, I'm just thank you for accompanying me on that journey. And I'd love any feedback as well if you have it on email. I'd say that the next step in this might be, if you were going to go away and like take an approach like this to a group that you're working with or anything like that, I would I'd then take these worlds and maybe see what the overlaps are, like where they intersect, what might be conflicting, what are the potential consequences of merging those worlds or visions, and start to like try and iron out and negotiate and build more and more complex worlds. Because it would just be one really fun and one really interesting to see like how tricky and difficult it is to merge all these visions together. So let me drop in my email here, which is hannah@realign.net. And then this is my Twitter and this is my Instagram. I'd love to keep in touch. And I'd love to maybe just invite people to drop in any reflections in the chat, and then just say thank you so much and have a lovely sunny afternoon or evening wherever you are.
Thank you. This was so great.
Thanks, Caitlin. So nice to see you.
I've also just put all of the information that you've reiterated into the chat. But you'll get an email from the MAIA and Yard team with more information. Really thankful for all of your time, Hannah. It was amazing. Can't wait for the next one.
Thank you. Oh, and I just saw Elizabeth is willing to read their writing very quickly. For anyone who wants to stay, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, it's Juneteenth, 2722. I'm not writing this because I'm no longer able to do so. My body has decomposed and feeds the microbes of the world. My mind exists as wind. I am another who exists as consciousness, outside of all that is known. I can only hear myself, I cannot know more. As I decompose, I've had to find love and a way to reconcile my awareness of my body disappearing, despite my ongoing desire to have my basic needs met. As my body feeds the microbes and ecology of my surroundings, as it is dispersed outwards, I become more than I ever was alone. And I am finally given a home, and I believe that my needs are being met, but mostly because I have come to reframe what my needs are, as I have now become a spirit only aware of the world, where my physical being circulates, expanding outwards, becoming more, and I am all and none, and my needs do not exist, because I am only this mind.
Elizabeth, was your premise was, what if we all had our basic needs met? Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You just came out with this absolute like meta, like Buddhist track. Yes. Thank you. What a note to end on. That was amazing. Fire, absolute fire. You're all brilliant. I feel so hopeful. Like, just the future's in good hands, isn't it, ultimately? Thank you. And hope to cross paths with you all again.